The Final Fantasy series is one of the oldest franchises in the gaming industry, spanning 15 main title games and several sequels and spin-offs, but do you realize how old it really is? In this video, we take a look at the top 10 Final Fantasy facts that will make you feel old. Kicking off our list at number 10 is Final Fantasy 15. The game was announced at E3 2006 as Final Fantasy Versus 13. Since then, the game has seen numerous changes, including changes to its title and director. However, with news that the game is playable from start to finish and the release date event coming up in March, it looks like we're finally getting close to the release, almost 10 years after its announcement. Remember the space probe called New Horizons that flew by Pluto last year? NASA launched this in 2006. So it seems it takes NASA less time to send a probe to the edge of the solar system than it takes Square Enix to finish this game. Perhaps the real reason why Square Enix isn't developing the Final Fantasy remake themselves, and the reason why it's going to be episodic, is because they fear NASA will put a man on Mars before the game comes out. Coming in at number 9, we have Final Fantasy XI. The first Final Fantasy MMO was released on PC and PlayStation 2 in 2002 in Japan and came to the West in the following years. The game has received 5 expansion packs and 6 add-on scenarios since its debut in 2002. The final main scenario was released last year, and Square Enix is going to pull the plug on the console servers. The game will live on, however, as the PC version remains unaffected and Square Enix plans to release a mobile client of the game. 2002 was also the year the Euro was introduced in the European Union and the year the US and its allies invaded Afghanistan. Number 8 on our list is Final Fantasy IX. The game was released in 2000 in Japan and the US and early 2001 in Europe. The game drew inspiration from the earlier titles in the Final Fantasy franchise, but it is now just as old or even older than the games that inspired it was at that time. To give you another idea of how old this is, Square still hadn't merged with Enix at this point and was still known as Squaresoft. Legendary series creator Hironobu Sakaguchi was also still working at Square. To put it into perspective, this was also around the time George W. Bush was sworn into office for his first term as president. Next game on our list is Final Fantasy Tactics. This beloved strategy RPG was originally released in 1997 in Japan and 1998 in the West. Since then, the game has seen a couple of spin-off titles and an enhanced port to PSP, but despite popular demand, the game has never received a direct sequel. To this day, it's still considered to be one of the best games in the genre. In other world news, this was around the time news about President Clinton's affair with Monica Lewinsky broke out. And 98 was the beginning of France's 2-year domination of world football, winning their first World Cup title on home soil.
Is it truly him?
Number 6 on the list is Final Fantasy VII. After more than a decade of teases and trolls, Square Enix finally announced a remake of this game at E3 last year, 18 years after its original release in 1997. Fans often argue about whether 6 or 7 is the best game in the series, but regardless of which camp you support, you cannot argue the importance of this game in gaming history. News that the remake will be episodic, perhaps we won't have to wait too long to see Cloud cross-dressing in glorious HD graphics. 1997 also bore witness to the release of the first Harry Potter book, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. the Japanese premiere of the Pokemon anime, and the tragic death of Princess Diana.
At last, the promise has been made.
Number 5 on our list is Final Fantasy VI. Final Fantasy VI may not match Final Fantasy VII when it comes to commercial success, but it certainly matches 7 in terms of importance. Final Fantasy VI launched in 1994 to critical acclaim, and the game is widely regarded as one of the best RPGs of all time. 1994 was an eventful year that saw Nelson Mandela inaugurated as South Africa's first black president, the last Russian troops leaving Germany and the Baltic states, and the Rwandan genocide. Next game on the list is Final Fantasy V. This game was originally released on the Super Famicom in 1992 in Japan only, though the game would make its way to the West many years later. The game was praised for its job system, which gave the player a lot of customization freedom. The game also introduced many new classes to the series, such as the Blue Mage and the Time Mage. In 1992, the world's first SMS message was sent in the UK, and Bill Clinton was elected the 42nd President of the US. In the world of sports, Denmark shocked Europe by winning the European Football Championship. Coming in at number 3, we have Final Fantasy IV. The fourth installment in the series was originally released in 1991, though the game has seen countless ports, a remake, and even a sequel since then. The game was widely praised by critics, and the game went on to become one of the most beloved entries in the series and the RPG genre. In other news from this year, the first Sonic game was released. Several Eastern European states voted for independence from the Soviet Union, and the Gulf War came to an end. Number 2 on the list is Final Fantasy II. This game was originally released in Japan in 1988 and eventually came to the West over a decade later. Final Fantasy II introduced several elements that went on to become standard elements in the franchise, such as chocobos and a character named Sid. In world news, the Soviet army began to withdraw from Afghanistan after more than 8 years of fighting, and George H.W. Bush became the first sitting vice president in 152 years to be elected president of the United States. Number 1 on the list had to be Final Fantasy I. The game that started it all is now 28 years old. Square was in deep financial trouble, and it was thought the game was going to be its last project. Series creator Hironobu Sakaguchi also thought the game was his last effort. Had the game not sold well, he would have quit the industry and returned to university. Luckily, the game received generally positive reviews, and the game was a great commercial success, laying the foundations for the Final Fantasy series that we all love to this day. In other news, The Legend of Zelda came to the West this year. President Reagan challenged Gorbachev to tear down the Berlin Wall, and the first ever Rugby World Cup was held in Australia and New Zealand. Do you agree with the list? Were you even alive when the first Final Fantasy was released? Let me know in the comments below, and if you liked this video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.